Parashat Vayechi. This shiur is dedicated for the great merit and success of Rachel Chaya Bat Sarah, for the refuah shlema of Breina Bracha Bat Rina, Reuven Leib ben Chana, Yehuda Chai ben Leah, Daniel ben Shoshana, also Leilui Nishmat Yosef ben Tzvi Hirsch, Veliba Chaya Bat Rab David. There are two parashiot in Sefer Bereshit that has names that is associated with life. One is Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah, and the other one is Vayechi, and he lived, which is our parasha. To a certain extent, that's somewhat of a paradox. Nice haircut, by the way. Because, why is it a paradox? Because both parashiot, both portion of the Torah, really concentrate on death. The first one is the death of Sarah, and this parasha is the death of Yaakov and Yosef. In those two parashiot, we see a great importance to the process of burial. And the actual fact that we do bury our people, and especially moving them to Eretz Israel, to Israel, hints to our belief in the life after death. And that's something that we also reflect on when we says Vayasaf el Amav, and he was gathered with to his people, which was said about Avraham and Yitzchak, which is an expression that Yaakov is really returning now. Saying again now. It says, Ani ne'esaf el ami, kivru oti el avotai b'ma'ara asher b'sdei ha'machpelah. I'm going to gather my people, and please bury me in Hebron. And again, we don't need to have proofs that Hebron is the land of the Jews and not the made-up nation of the Palestinians. But that belief in eternal life, which is really a bracha, like anything else, could become also a kala, could become a curse. That danger of that brought Judaism to have a special treatment or deal in a special way with the whole process of burial and death and so on and so forth, especially burial. Because one hand, it was given a glory of holiness, and then we see it when we talk about desecrating a grave, a Jewish grave. It means that there was a certain holiness over there. And on the other hand, halakha tells us that death is the top of all impurities that are out there, and to such an extent, what we call avi avot hatum'ah, the father of all fathers of impurities. And it's so much that a Kohen is not allowed to enter a cemetery or to be in needless to say, a presence of a dead person besides one of his relatives that he's commended by. In Sefer Dvarim, in Perek Lamed, Pasuk Yutet, the Torah commends us, and it says, "Uvacharta b'chaim," and you choose life. I don't think that this parasha, I'm going to tell you this right now, is going to be an explanation necessarily on the parasha, on the portion, but somewhat of a Jewish philosophical aspect about life and death altogether. Now that we mentioned that, I also need to, I would like to mention that if you have any questions or ideas or requests, or you need an advice, you can always reach us at Rabbi Gaon, that's Rabbi Gaon at gmail.com. And you could also check us in the Yeshiva at yeshivaetzion.com. I think they have a Facebook, and I know we have an Instagram. And what else we have? We have guys, we don't have money, and for that you can help us and go to the Yeshiva website at yeshivaetzion.com, and there's a donate over there. and you could help us out. Anyway, so let's go back. It says "Ubacharta b'chaim," but in somewhat of a paradox, dealing with death and thinking about death might actually help us understand ourselves and understand our lives. That lesson has great meaning, and we can find it in great magnitude in two contradicting verses in our sources in our Bible. One is a very, very tragic and horrific statement which was brought by the prophet Isaiah in chapter 22 verse 13. It says, Achol v'shato ki machar namut. Eat and drink because tomorrow we'll die. Now if you think about the statement, it is to a certain extent mind-boggling, and that's what I started telling you earlier. That's the attitude of many people. All we concentrate is about eating and drinking because tomorrow we'll die. In other words, there is no hope for tomorrow. So, which is really heavy. I mean, that's what most people do nowadays. And the other one is what it tells us about Rabbi Eliezer ben Hurkanus. It says, "Veshuv yom echad lifnei mitatcha." It's a Mishnah in Masechet Avot. Repent, come back to God, come back to your people one day before you die, because there is life after death, and then after that you can fix it. So they're kind of contradicting one another. So even though that both of them are contradicting and showing us different ways, a different path, there is a tremendous common foundation or an idea to both of them. The danger of death, and even thinking about death, could bring us as humans to a moment of truth. Understanding that one day you're going to be smelling roses from the wrong side of the rose, we're going to, from the roots, not from the top. And that is actually might shine a little bit of a light on reality and what we do and what we are not doing. Another one is really to awaken us that sleeping dormant thought that we always had with us, to be able to separate and distinguish between what is important and what is not important in life. We got confused. I mean, we don't put things in the right perspective. And what is important we make not important, and the other way around. Or, if we're dealing with some stupidity things and we're doing some stupid things, all of a sudden they might get a completely different proportion, which is probably more truthful and with a better quality to it. For example, not anything about Disney World, but why would we go to Orlando, right? What's the point of going to Disney World? I mean, you don't even spend time with your kids. Go with your kids. Go take them to a camp, make a bonfire, sit down with the Bible, go fishing with your son or with your daughter. The daughter can go fishing. Or just spend time with them without spinning around like a lunatic in some machine and staying in the lines forever. I mean, all these things that we do. How wonderful it would be if fathers can actually go 4x4 with their kids. Right? There's a different expression to father and son activities, right? I mean, we always run away, and we make excuses for everything that we do, but the bottom line is we are fooling everybody, including ourselves. And we give our kids a very bad habit of what really is important and what is not important. So, and if we're not going to do so, we might actually enter that a certain, if we're not going to think about it, enter like a tsunami of a tidal wave of fulfilling physical desires. Forget about it. Let's just go to all included hotel and spas and all included whatever people do, all included. Boats and what do you call it, cruises. Everything is included. Diseases, whatever you want, they're all included in the price. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. However, we can always, people were never going to agree, and there's always going to be people from both sides of the thing. However, if we are actually going to be wise enough and we have the merit enough, maybe we will merit that moment of truth, and we at that point stop. Take your jacket off, for crying out, I'm sweating just looking at you. Just a moment of truth of not lying, or maybe we'll stop lying to ourselves and to those who are dear to us. And which I think is one of the biggest mistakes that we make throughout our lives is that we indulge on the fantasy that we created, and we're trying to persuade the whole entire world about that fantasy. And I think usually it's because we are so afraid of finding out who we are and what we are. So we're always going to blame society, we're going to blame our environment and cultural thing. Blame everybody besides your own self that you are weak. So therefore the question should be asked, is life the beginning of death, or death is the end of life? Okay? Because you could say that from the moment you are born, you are getting closer day by day to your death. Or you could say death is just another aspect of what life is, just going from one door to another. It depends how we actually do with this. However, most of us, if we refer to death, we always look at death from the point of judgment and all kind of different things like this, and punishments and hell and heaven and rewards, and so it's like we're making a business out of death. So let's see, maybe through the eyes of the Parashat and the actions of Yaakov, we can get a different perspective about death and life as well. So Yaakov is doing three different actions in this Parashat. The first one is really taking care of his burial in Israel, in Hebron. Somebody seems like he just ate something fried or barbecue. Or somebody was frying in your house or something. It smells like food to me. So, again, he was buried in Hebron, and Hebron is a Jewish settlement. Always was, always will be, regardless what propaganda you hear in the news or what politicians in the White House, the Black House, or the Green Tent decide to have. I'm really tired of this. I'm really so tired of this, you have no idea. I'm so tired of this ongoing lies, and the fact that nobody again does nothing or said out loud about this lie that is called the Palestinian people, the Palestinian country that never exists. I'm just tired of this already. I'm tired. So the second one is the bracha that Yaakov gives to the sons of Yosef, which really includes with it an opportunity to actually have a conversation. Look how important it is. And how yet sad and tragic that until that point, that his death, Yaakov did not have a conversation with Yosef. So he's including this opportunity to talk to him about his mother's death and the burial of his mother's death. And again, if you look at yourselves or look around you at other people, how many times you actually sat down with your dad and chilled out and talked about something? Yeah, you could do it over a glass of beer, a bottle of beer. There's nothing wrong with that. Just be chilled out. Talk to your son. Talk to your daughter. Talk to them as people. You're missing out. Again, because we're too busy playing a role. Sit down with your kids and you'll be surprised what wonderful people they are. And you guys, besides you guys all gonna be fathers. These are guys all fathers already, but I'm telling you now what to do. Because you're gonna make the same mistake that everybody else makes. You're never going to bother to spend time to really discover who your kid is. And that's what the Parashat is telling us about Yaakov. Ribono shel Olam, after Yaakov came to Egypt, right before his death, that's the only time that he found to actually have a conversation with his son. So you're going to tell me that's horrible? And I'll tell you, how about you guys? Well, how about your parents? When was the last time they sat down with you? Just have a conversation. Just like talk. Not about trying to catch flies with that. So, just to talk about, just like two people talking. Getting to know one another. It's very sad that we all grow up and we don't know who our kids are, nor our parents know who we are. It's very sad. It's tragic. So, and of course, to make up to that, we have to control one another. And that's, the parents control you when you're young, and then you control them when they're old. That's the way it is. It's all a stupid game of control. So, and at the end, of course, there's the direct approach to all of the children in somewhat of a combination of a personal will and in terms of setting up goals for them for the future, and of course the bracha, the blessing that he gives them. So by trying to at least look at what Yaakov was doing here, maybe we could get some kind of a meaning regarding death from the life perspective. Most of the time we get used to deal with death from the perspective of the dying people or the dead. What's going to be and so on. But we never look at death from the perspective of the people who are alive. And that is an opportunity to of course, every time we talk about the death or dead people, we're talking about sachar ve'onesh, punishment, rewards, punishment, and so on and so forth. Gilgul neshamot, olam haba, tchiyat hametim, all kind of stuff like this that we heard already, for millions. But at those moments, those moments of passing through, while we are still here in this world, how are we actually going to look at life in what we call our new life? If we will be able to understand, where we're standing or where is it taking us. So that chance, if we're going to talk about, death in the eyes of the living, the Masechet, it's not my idea, of course, don't get me wrong, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat, there is a Mishnah over there that talks about extinguishing the candle in different situations on Shabbat. In other words, turning off the lights on Shabbat in different circumstances. For example, if it's a matter of danger, for the places of danger, or for some person, for him to go to sleep because he's sick, and so on and so forth. And the Gemara that deals with the Mishnah in Shabbat, Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, there's a wonder, and I really would recommend to all of you to take a look at this Agada over there about the connection between the candle and the neshama, and that's what we call it Ner Neshama, as we says Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam, and the symbolism of turning off the candle, as we have it as a sign of death. That's why we don't blow the candle, because it's the Nishmat Chaim Shenapach, we blow it, and so on and so forth. It's really beautiful. It talks about eclipses over there and so on. However, there are over there are three psukim who really serve the Agadah as a to describe really the relationship between life and death. And in one of them is in Kohelet, Ecclesiastics. It says, "V'shaveach ani et hametim shekvar matu." I'm already praising the dead already died. And it's a pasuk that it seems that there is something greater in death than there is in life. On the other hand, the Gemara brings two other psukim that just show the opposite, that shows that it's better to be alive than to be dead. And one of them is in Tehillim, in Psalms, right? It says, "Lo hametim yehallelujah." The dead people cannot praise God. And the other one also in Kohelet, it says, "Ki lakelev chai hu tov min arei hamet." A living dog is better than a dead lion. So these three psukim, they're not really contradicting one another, but they're completing one another. And they create a very complex yet beautiful picture of what everything is that we are experiencing of. So, and I have to tell you, from the pasuk that we says Lo hametim yehalleluya, we learn, and pay attention, this is so important, that turning life as a song of praise to Hashem is an unbelievable additional benefit of life over death, of people who are living, the people that are dead. And you're going to think now very carefully about the way you live your life. Is your life a poetry, a praise, the way you live to your life, a praise to God? Is it? Is this something to be proud of? Think about your life. Is there anything in your life that you could say, zeh shevach le'elokim? Why, do you got another zero in your bank account? I'm going to tell you, and please forgive my vulgarity, is a greater praise of God when you go to the bathroom that you make a bracha on, Asher yatzar otam nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim, than the way you live your life. What is it to be proud of in your life? Not for what you achieved, I did this, you know. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu would say, that's my boy. That's my boy. I'm so proud of him. Or her. No, her, him. What is there something that you could say, I know HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be very proud of me. This is what I'm doing is poetry in motion. It's like praising to Hashem. This is, when I was thinking about it, it's like I was all of a sudden hit a brick wall. I heard the big band like banging in my head. Whoa! Did you ever think about that? Did you ever examine your life like this? Okay, so you got a PhD in I don't know what, in microbiology. Okay, so what? That's something that Hashem will be proud of? You fool. It ain't. Think about your life. Think about what you're doing. Because the other ones, the dead ones, are silent. And they cannot do Kiddush Hashem while they're dead. You could. You could sanctify God's name every single moment of your life, in almost every action that you do. You could sanctify Shem Shamayim. Do you do that? And if not, hate to say it, what are you doing here? What's your purpose? So you understand, slowly, where I'm going here. We are in a special world that's called Olam HaAsiyah, which is the lower of all the worlds. However, yet it's the lower. Of course, above us there's Olam. Bria, no. Asiyah אנחנו פה. יצירה. בריאה ואצילות. However, the most important world is not Atzilut. The most important word is here, in the gutters of all this, in Olam HaAsiyah. Because Olam HaAsiyah allows us an opportunity to make brachot. Olam HaAsiyah allows us to thank Hashem. In Olam, any other Olamot, you can say thanks to Hashem. You could learn Torah, and you could fill every aspect of your life and every cell of your existence with meaning of what it is to have God in your life. But, as they say, Bametim Chovshi, the dead one is Chovshi, you're free of all this. You could be free on mitzvot only when you're dead. In the kever you can rest. Death is a separation from olam ha'asiyah. And from the pasuk v'shobeach ani et hametim shekvar matu, we could learn that there is also, of course, advantages of being dead over being alive, right? You don't do averot and some other things like that. So the Gemara explains this word by word. So in the first drasha, the Gemara does not really answer our expectation to find great advantage in being dead just for the fact that they are dead. Because after all, you're dead. But rather the Gemara or the Darshan is trying to experience or explain to us the experience of our existence, the way we have it here. That our parents and our grandparents that went from this world and passed away are protecting us. And the Gemara indicates to us that the dead people in their death are what we lean on, or the basis on which we stand on, and that's what we call l'schut avot to their children, the merit of the parents to their children. They work hard, they stand the basis so we can stand on and we're not going to fall. The living people cannot really fool themselves that they are holding the reins by themselves. They're not doing that. Because their actions are really established on very deep foundations, and the ability for them to do anything really comes from those who already separated and left us. They inherit us all these great abilities and great kochot, possibilities for us to do what we came here to do. And that's why it means that you can turn the light on there. It's not a problem. That's why it means that, for example, that a person that doesn't have any roots or deep roots and does not have or is not well anchored in tradition is really a person that his resistance or ability to resist is very, very poor. Because he has nothing to back him up. Why? Because achayim tluim bametim. The living are dependent on the dead. So what we do, for example, with the ger, with a convert, we don't leave him hanging. We associate him immediately to Avraham Avinu. Right away, he's associated to Avraham Avinu. Right away, he's associated to Sarai Imenu. To Sarah. Because to stand alone, it's not fair. To live alone, we're like torn. It's not. So we associate him immediately. That's why it's called, for example, a ger is called Ben Avraham, or Ben Sarah, or Bat Sarah, or Ben Sarah. Depends on what it is. When we call a ger tzedek to the Torah, we call him Yamod Ploni Ben Avraham. And we do refuah shlema, is Ben Sarah. Okay? So you have to. We are not, hydroponics or some kind of like air-growing plants that grows by air. We need something to attach ourselves to grow. So in a way, a ger is like a tree that was grafted into our rootstock, and the rootstock is Avraham and Sarah. So if you try to break away from your tradition, if you try to disconnect yourself from really who you are, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And I'm not talking about those cultural aspects that sometimes bring us out. I'm talking about greater things, halacha and so on. The fact that you're a Jew, that by itself is enough. And, as they say, there's a very famous joke that they say, you know what yichus is, right? Lineage. You know what's in common between potatoes and your lineage? The best part is on the ground. So in the second statement, the Gemara really refers to other points, and this is what which is really accepting. These are the words, for example, of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu already died, and his words are really anchored and established to us more after his death than they were while he was alive. Because when he was alive, we had machloket with Korach. People were arguing with Moshe all the time. After Moshe died, you don't see anybody contradicting Moshe Rabbeinu. So you see, after his death, he's gone. And many people also, like the Rambam, during the time that he was alive, people were angry with him and so on and so forth. And now we can move left or right without the Rambam. The question is, of course, why is that? Because the principle is that the words of a person while he's alive, there's great chances of them to actually being accepted. Why? Because his ideas and his concept are associated with the goof, with the body. But when the person is dead and the words are there, the words or his idea stands by themselves without actual association to the body. Therefore, they could be much more well accepted, because now you can look at the idea without putting it like this. And of course, that's what we said, Torah ta'ani bzuya, right? If a person is a poor person, whatever he will tell you, he can tell you the best idea that's out there. By you, as an inferior person, going to look, say, he's a poor person. I'm not listening to him. I'm going to listen to somebody who's chashuv. Meanwhile, this guy will tell you gems. You don't know. But that's how it is. After the person dead, after that, everybody becomes holy. Everything is good. Because you deal with the idea by itself. So you see, there's something very important about death, that you're able to separate. And then, of course, it's not, you could say it's reminiscing and this and that. But usually, not always, but usually, after, when you were a child, so, your father might do. Recently I heard about a person that his father had, a very bad habit. And his habit was to go to the supermarket, and you know how they do it in Israel, they taste. They have those olives and everything else. So his father used to taste, and he used to taste a lot, Chalva or whatever it is, they have it there to taste. And the kid said, it's not a kid, he's like 44 now. He said that he really resented his father for his behavior. The people in the supermarket knew him, they never said anything to him. Holocaust survivor, whatever it was. But never said anything to him. But he resented his father. He says, I used to give my father grief. He says, now that my father is dead, he says, I wish my father was alive so I could really embrace him and really actually celebrate his behavior. I realized how stupid it was for me to resent my father when I was alive. Of course, we don't have to go there. We can do so now. But that takes a lot of power from the person. So you see, it's always like that. After the person, things kind of fall into place, and you look at things a little different, a little bit more in a positive way. And the third one is the ability to forgive. Our ability to forgive. Right, Avner? Right. So the Gemara brings the story, of course, of David HaMelech, that in his life, he was always with the while he was alive, there was a huge machloket about his conduct, and because of that, his eligibility to be a king, because whatever he did with Bathsheba and so on and so forth. So for that, really, it says, Ki hakelev chayu tov min ha'ariyah met, right? So, and we know exactly that the Medrash tells us that David HaMelech knew he was going to die on Shabbat, and since that point, he was really on a survival war or battle with death. So therefore, what did he do? He learned all the time, and he learned every Shabbat. He learned. It was a survival thing until his time to go came. And then the Malach HaMavet did a trick. He made some noise in the background. David HaMelech went to see what it is. And then he fell and he died. So then Shlomo asked the question. He asked the Chachamim what to do. David HaMelech was on the steps of his garden, and he asked the thing what to do. He says, "Well, what I'm going to do for the wolves? I'm going to eat the lion, the dead lion." So they said to him, feed them a nevela, feed them a non-kosher animal, just feed them something. And also take a piece of bread or a loaf of bread and place it on your father. because the dead person is muktzeh, and therefore place it on your father, then because of that, bring them in, because he was concerned with his father's kavod. So, David HaMelech, what we call the great lion, all of a sudden, from being such a great lion, became basically a serving tray for bread, in order for him to be moved into safety, so he won't be disgraced out in the sun until the end of Shabbat. And really, without kind of mercy, the Agadah tells us how death turns a person into an object. Because a person, what do you need? What? What is this? Leave him alone. So, David HaMelech is not a player anymore who plays and acts in the field of life, but he's kind of been pushed away to the backstage, and his presence is kind of down. Of course, it has an importance to all of us and to the living people. However, the torch is being handed over to somebody else, and he's just a object. So when Yaakov is ready to die, he lives in the center, that last meaning of the needed and the one that needs to be supplied, the supplier and the one who needs to be supplied. That he shows us the way to move from what we call from the gavra, from the man to the chavtza, to become an object. Yaakov Avinu shows us that passage to the background of life, in closing the circle, in coming to closure with his son, which is trying to actually receive the mechila, that his son will forgive him before he died, in order to be able to reach a certain kind of a balance and acceptance. And in his blessings to his son, he understands the uselessness of death. And the dead person, he understands that his separation from the world of Asiyah that we had is coming, and it's really going to separate from there, and he feels the emptiness in death. And it's very, very difficult to see a person who is still awake, he's still with his mind, and understand that he's going to die. And that's his coming to an end. It is a most horrific thing. And you see that slowly the emptiness and the fear of the person that might all his life thought that he is ready to face death. And I'm ready. No problems. You are never ready. Because all of a sudden when you realize that you are going to go, all of a sudden say, please, I'm not yet. And it's too late. I remember seeing it. I saw those things with my own eyes. I'm not just telling you stories of, or I heard of. I saw it with my own eyes. The understanding that I was a big man, and look at me now. I'm going. It's very, very difficult, and yet in the same time he understands. Yaakov Avinu understands that he is a cornerstone in what is going to become Am Yisrael. So it's really tearing you apart. In one hand, he understands that he's going to become dead. He's going to become an object, a body, and yet he understands that he is Yaakov Avinu, and he understands and therefore what he gives to his children, to his son, at that moment, becomes even more magnified in terms of the brachot that he gives them. Because he understands their mission in life and what they need to inherit to their children, and so on and so forth. And he needs to give them with something that they could deal with life, because they're not going to be able to come to him with an advice afterwards. So he needs to give them something that they could rely on and build on, so they can continue functioning life. And many times we are deceiving ourselves and others in our concern to really grasp the means. And we put our attention to grasp means. And first of all is money. And by pursuing that urges us to try to grab the means, which is the money, we really forget and neglect the cause of why we have this means in order to get. In other words, when you are busy making money, and I'm going to ask you why, you're going to tell me I need to provide for my family. I'm going to tell you very nice, but how about other things that you need to provide with your family, like attention, or anything else? Or you don't need the new SUV, and you don't need the new, well, it's going to be comfortable for me, What do you think they did beforehand? So you forget, why are you working? You forget the reason that you try to make money. You don't need a new car. You need a car that will take you from point A to point B. Put a rack and tie the stuff on top. What did they do beforehand? What did your parents do? They managed. All of a sudden you can't. So you need to think about those things and what's really, really is important. Most of the important things are sinking in the ocean of what is trivial. Our world, our inner words, our desire, our deep desires, the authentic desire is really being canceled and deleted in what we call the real us, the real thing, which is really a virtual reality that we created, which is really fake. If you're thinking that your kids need a vacation in the Bahamas, you are wrong. Your kids need you there next to them. So you can, instead of going to vacation to I don't know, even to Florida, or I don't know, wherever people go on vacation, and you need to get a house with a pool and a pool with a house and mojitos every morning. I mean, that's nice if you retire to do that. But once you have kids, your kids don't need that. Your kids need you next to them. To get up in the morning, to cook breakfast with them, to go to the park, to come back, to throw ball, to play ball, to do all these things. That's what they need you. Because then you're going to go and work even harder to cover up the debt that you accumulated for your real need of your kids. You don't need it. You don't need 90% of the things you think you need. And 90% of the things that your kids need, they don't need. They need you. And you need to understand that. And we bichlal neglect our own opinions because it's always the opinions of somebody else. I mean, it's very easy for us to rely on somebody else's opinions and the fake news and this and that fashion and that style because we can always blame somebody else. We don't want to discover ourselves and what we really think and what we really want because we can always blame somebody. So we never want to blame ourselves. We're going to blame somebody else for that. So also that's a part of the falseness of a life that we're living. We're lying to ourselves and we're lying to everybody else. Now, if we're going to go back to Sarai Menu, which we started, right? So in the last parasha that we talked about, Parashat Vayigash, when Yaakov Mispara, we're almost done, by the way, we're almost done. Almost done. So Paro asked him, Kama yemei shnei chayecha? How old are, or how many are the days of your two lives, of both of your lives? So Yaakov answers, Yemei shnei megurai, the days of my living. He didn't say Yemei chayai, he answered them differently. And then he says, Me'at v'ra'im, ayu Yemei chayai. There were few and they were very bad. Ve'lo hisigu et Yemei shnei chayai avotai b'yemei megureim. And they didn't reach the days of, and look at what he's saying, the days of the life of my ancestors, while they were living. Megurim means resident. Now, pay very close attention. Now, what's the difference? It's very complicated. What's the difference? Shnei yemei megurai, when I was living, and Shnei yemei chayai, when I was alive. What's the difference between the two? So the Malbim and Baalei Musar explained to us that there are times that a person is alive, but is not necessarily alive, and not is alive every single moment, but rather he lives on the planet Earth, but he's not alive on the planet Earth. And for example, when Paro is asking Yaakov, so he says, I lived on this earth 130 whatever years. I lived here, but I wasn't really alive. Why? Because I have a lot of difficulties. Lavan caused me a problem. My brother wanted to kill me. My daughter was kidnapped and raped. My son was sold, and I was in misery. That was not considered to be life. So if you ask me, Yemei Megurai, how long am I being on this earth? Well, that's 130 years. But if you ask me about how many years of that I was actually alive, well, that's much less. Now, by Sarai Menu, it wasn't like this. By Sarai Menu, every day that she was alive was an alive day. Was a day that she lived in. ויהיו חיי שרה 120 שנה ו7 שנים, שני חיי שרה. Now, was it חיי שרה or מגורי שרה? שני חייה, she was here and she was alive. שני, you're going to tell me, because it's the same, מגורי, שני חיים, מה זה שני חיים? שני חיים means that she was here, living on earth, and she was alive while she was here. Now, the same thing with Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, it says, Avraham Zaken, Baba Yamim. And some explain that Avraham Avinu came with all his days. Every single day of his day was considered to be life, alive. So why did the Torah tell us, Vayechi Yaakov be'Mitzrayim 17 shana? Why, when he told us that they lived in Egypt 17 years, when simple math tells us, right, tells us that, to tell us that the days he was in Yosef, those 17 years that he was in Yosef, he was alive. He didn't have problems. He was alive. And so therefore, and in English it sounds it's very interesting. They ask you, how old are you, right? How old are you? Which is not the case in Hebrew. In Hebrew we says, Ben Kamata. Ben, Lashon Ben, like son, right? Ben Kama. Ben Kamata. So, in other words, how young are you? Not how old are you. How young are you? And, in other words, when you ask somebody in Hebrew, he said, are you still living your life with the passion to live as a young man? With koach, with energy, with ambition, or you already dead? I said to somebody, sometimes, I understand that my body is falling apart. It's not what it used to be, right? And still, I feel like my mind is like I'm 20, 25 years old. And sometimes I look at some of you guys, your bodies are young, but your minds is old. You're like people in in a wheelchair, like 95 years old with a catheter, like in the thing up your nose. And that's why I try to wake you up all the time to tell you, is this considered to be life? What you're doing? But you should know, and then we're going to finish with this. It's not only for us that death is telling us what to do. He also shines our relationship to the people, or shines a light onto relationship to the people that we really love. Death really demands us not to sacrifice our love, or the relation of the sweet love between a husband and his wife on the altar of desire, of right now desires without thinking about the future. On the contrary, when Yaakov meets Yosef after those years of separation, he says, "Amuta apam acharei re'oti et panecha ki odecha chai." I should die this time. This time. Well, this time I wasn't, before he wasn't dead. But Amuta apam, after I saw your face, because you are alive. So, which is, again, as we said, some kind of a paradox that called us to give love before we're going to die. And since you don't know, you need to make sure to express your love with everybody. I mean, if you're going to look at the difference between, for example, Japan and Israel, it's very bizarre. In Japan, people don't hug one another. In Israel, everybody hugs one another. They're hugging and they're kissing and they're giving love like this. In Japan, it's all like, oh yes, and it's so bad that it can't even show emotions of sadness or happiness. So share your love with the people that you really love. Why? Because Amuta apam. Because amuta apam, who knows, what's going to be. Try to express love without without drama, without extreme situation. All of a sudden, when there is some kind of death, chas v'shalom, in the family or something like this, all of a sudden everybody finds one another and they love one another, they hug one another, and they kiss one another. Akol tov v'yafeh, right? It's all wonderful. But why do they have to come to such a terrible situation? Why can't we just love everybody without those difficult situations? Why can't we come together to be together with one another without those extreme cases? And that goes to your loved ones, and it goes between us as a people. Why would there's only a difficult thing that happens to the Jewish people, all of a sudden remember, Kol Am Yisrael Chai, we're all together. Why didn't we do this beforehand? Isn't that the reason why we got hit? We should show our love to one another, to people who are important. And of course, hopefully that we'll be able, we're going to be able to do so before the people that are important, before they all become a memory and something of a nostalgia of the past. You know what I would do? You know how much I miss my father? I cannot tell you. I miss my father so much. I really miss my dad. That's nothing I can do now. I mean, and that's after I used to call him 3 times a day when he was alive. I used to call my dad 3 times a day. And I used to call him like this when it was $1 a minute. But I understand that it wasn't enough. Now it wasn't enough. So why do you have to wait for this? Your father, Baruch Hashem, are still alive. Why don't you just enjoy your dads? And accept them with all the good qualities and all the bad qualities. Learn to accept them. Don't reject them. Accept your parents. They also are somewhat, should I call you, emotionally handicapped. And we should know better and accept people for who they are. Because once they're gone, they're going to be gone with the good and the bad. And then there's nothing you can do about it. So learn to appreciate and express your love to the people while they're around you. This is what Yaakov is telling us. And that's what it tells us. And that's what the Gemara tells us. That the Echol v'sheto ki machar namut calls us not to eat and drink and to give up hope. On the contrary, to eat and drink together, because eating and drinking brings people together. Echol v'sheto, let's eat and drink together, because tomorrow we're going to die and we're not going to be able to have it. On the way here, I was listening to the radio. There was a song, it's called Going to California. And the song almost brought tears to my eyes. Why did it bring tears to my eyes? Because that's a song that I used to sing with my best friend. We used to sleep like this. I was on the top bunk, he was on the bottom bunk. We were together in the Air Force Academy. And he's dead now. But our dream was to one day to come to the United States after we finished with the Air Force, to come to the United States, to go coast to coast, and we're going to play this song on a plane. And when I came here on a plane 30 whatever years ago, this song came to my head. And I was tearing, and my wife said to me, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Nothing, just the smoke, because people used to smoke on a plane." These things are gone, and you don't know who's going to go. 19-year-old boy is gone. We were so much alike. Our mothers used to confuse us. Our mothers. That's how close we were. And it's gone. Now it's only a memory. So you need to embrace it, and whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whoever it is, embrace them and accept them. Don't be critical of people. That's how they are. For good or bad, accept them. Embrace them. Celebrate the moment. Because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that teaches us to stick to the here and now. To the here and the now. To stick to that. In other words, there's only the present. The future is not here, and the past is already gone. There's only the present. However, we also have Veshuv Yom Echad Lifnei Mitatcha. Come back and repent a day before you die. give us a different perspective with the first initiation of what tshuva or repentance is all about, a real evaluation, a reevaluation of what is our life and where are we going with it, because we don't know where we're going to go. So you need to reevaluate now, right now. Evaluate your life. When you go home, sit down and evaluate your life, and then reevaluate your life and redetermine things that are really important. Ask yourself, where am I going with this? I don't want to hear advice from Malach HaMavet. I don't want the Malach HaMavet to give me advice. They're probably a little bit suspicious, because what good is your advice? Because the end is already here. He's coming to take you. Thank you very much. Where you been until now, right? Kind of a thing. However, one advice he does give us, and it is that there is going to be a death one day to all of us. And that meaning of that came to us from death is the ability or the obligation that we have to fix things. We need to fix our lives, and we must implant in every single day of our life meaning and action. Because without action, without meaning, and without life, our lives are not lives. We are zombies. So Rabotai, let's roll our sleeves. Let's do evaluation, and let's see what it is. And again, I would like to hear from everybody on the emails that we said earlier, and have a very wonderful and spiritual Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.